everyone. Can I have your attention, please? Welcome to our second annual RCIC networking event. Yeah, we can have everyone seated so we can get started. We promised to make it on time. We have a lot of things lined up today, so we're already 10 minutes late. And as professionals in this field, we should really be on time, right? Absolutely. All right, so welcome everyone to our second annual RCIC networking event. My name is Asma Mohran. If you are on the Telegram group, you probably do know me, you probably have seen me, and I have been asked to speak a lot. So I might as well be an MC tonight. I'll be your MC along with my colleague Aisha here. Yeah, thank you. And so we are really delighted to see everyone on board. I think we're all coming here to learn from each other, to grow together, and thanks to everyone who were in the office since early morning today, yet were able to make their way to the event today so we can all see each other, get to meet, and get to network together. And so before we start, I wanted to introduce you to our team. Who's who? Who are we? What's going on? What's happening? So this Telegram group has been running for the past 2 years? 2 years, right? Yes, excellent. We've had amazing people participating in this group, and so last year, people from this group, actually the administrator, TRK, welcome, decided to bring everyone together for us to actually meet each other. And so making it to the second annual meeting today, he actually brought this team that you see on the screen, which I'll actually come here to introduce you. So myself, Asma, and Aisha here will be your MCs tonight. Taiba and Samina. Taiba, put your hand up for us. Samina, where are you? Samina's here. They will be doing the entertainment sessions, which everyone has been really looking forward to. Govinda is our registration. Here he is. Thank you. And Jeff. Is Jeff here? He's coming. All right. We're all really excited to meet him. He'll be our panel moderator tonight. Jayan, are you here? AV? So AV, he's really behind the scenes trying to get this mic to work. Thank you. Rashid is doing our buffet coordinator. Rashid, are you here? All right, so he's helping outside. But if you guys have any issues, with the food, he's the person to talk to, right? And then we have our TRK here, our boss. He is really, if you can't get a hold of any of us, he is the one to talk to. But really the reason we are mentioning this is we wanted to tell you that we've been working, even though we are assigned to different roles, but really we've been working behind the scenes for the past 2 months or so, meeting regularly and chatting just to make this event happen. But thanks to everyone here coming today that actually made this event happen. So thank you. Thanks, everyone. And so Aisha will introduce us to the agenda for tonight.
So thank you, Asma, for the introduction, and welcome everyone. Glad to see all the professionals coming together to this amazing event. And I'm very sure by the end of this event, you will be making priceless professional connections. So let us look at the agenda for the day. Okay. So to start with, we'll be facilitating some fun ice-breaking activities, which would be coordinated by Taiba, and we can have refreshments along, followed by Shifali Kapoor, who will be talking about her journey and experience as an RCIC. And then we have at 6 p.m. panel discussion, which will be coordinated by Jeff. It would be on the topic LMIA and work permits, which we all would be very interested in. And then we'll be having some tips and tricks on port of entry procedures by Sebastian. After that, Asma will be talking about reconsideration requests with regards to temporary residence visas. And then we'll be having our dinner, and this is the agenda for the day. So can we have Taiba on the stage for starting the activities?
Good evening, everybody. I never knew I had to be on the stage for this. That's a surprise. Okay, so we thought of starting this event with some ice-breaking activities, and as you all know that everybody was thinking of networking and they were talking about being given time for networking. So we thought what could be a better way of starting the evening with a game which is called speed networking. So you will all find papers and pencils on your table. So just pick one person as a head of your table and let that person write the questions. I will give you questions, and then what you can do is that you have to ask each other those questions and you have to answer, and you have to network that way. You'll be given 5 minutes, and you will get time to get to gather as much information from each other. So have you picked up your head of tables? Have you done so? Does everybody have paper and pencil? Are you all set? Should I start saying the questions? Okay. So question number 1. I have been an RCIC since. Okay, that's the first question. Then the second question is, my favorite hobby is. So the third question is, I have been in Canada since. You have to write the year. And I live in dash city of Canada. And the fifth question is, my mother tongue is. Okay, you've got 5 minutes. And 5 minutes. Who's noticing the time? Okay, I have my watch on. Asma, do I just stand over here or do I get to play too? I'll just monitor you guys. I'll just supervise everyone. Okay. 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 So I. Yeah, the speaker. 2 more minutes left. Yeah.
I'm like now I'm not that active. So I think I've seen you. I know Asma because from last year
I
she
know.
was very active. But this year I've been really busy. So
It gets, I know. Okay, folks, time's up. So I'll pick a table and I'll ask you a question and just, you can answer me. So I'll just randomly pick a table. So Kaushik, your table. Gobinda, your table. So do you guys know who has been living in Canada for the longest period of time? Who? What's the name of this guy? Oh, so you've been living here forever. Wow, that's amazing. Okay. And can you please introduce yourself? Okay. Okay. Perfect. Amazing. Okay. So next table, Asma's table. So, so who has been the longest serving RCIC here? On your table. Who's the one? Asma, you're the one? Okay. So Asma is the most experienced RCIC on this table. A round of applause for Asma. I think nobody is interested in it. Okay, so another table. Okay, the last table, the end table, Samina, where Samina is sitting. So how many languages are spoken on your table, Samina? 6? 10 languages. Oh, wow. So can you please name those languages? Okay, Samina, can you please come on stage and... Nobody can hear you, Samina. You can probably use the mic.
Here you go.
We've got Russian, Turkish, German, Arabic, Vietnamese, Tagala, Ukrainian, Russian, Hindi, Gujarati, and German.
You have more languages than the number of people on your table. Very nice. Very nice. They speak more languages than the number of people.
That was a lot of languages. Now we know where to get interpreters and translators from. That's the table. Okay, so I'm going to ask this table now. So can anybody come and tell us what your hobbies are? Yeah. Yeah. Who was the head of the table? You were?
All right, the hobbies. Harmanjot sir. Swimming. Devinder. I'll come back to you. Amit ji. Traveling, right? And eating. That's what I've added because I know him. And Manjeet ji. His hobby is boxing, right? And Devinder. Spending time in the office. And my hobby. I love working out. So whenever I get time, I want to be in the gym.
Wow, that's amazing. We share our hobby. Okay, so I'm going to hand over the microphone to Isha, and so that she can proceed the events.
Okay. So get ready to gain some amazing experience. First up, we have Shefali Kapoor joining us on the stage. Shefali started her practice in 2018 and has successfully helped many individuals to accomplish their goals of permanently settling in Canada. She has hands-on experience in simple to complex express entry applications, spousal or family sponsorship applications including conjugal and same-sex relationships, LMIAs and work or study permit applications. In addition, she has extensive experience in all categories of applications under various PNP programs. Prior to establishing T-Dot Immigration, Shefali ventured into entrepreneurship in 2012 in travel industry, which led to the realization of her passion for immigration and helping the vulnerable from unauthorized consultants. Presenting to you Shefali Kapoor, who will be talking about her journey and experience as an RCIC. Can we have a big round of applause?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Kaushik and his entire team for having me here this evening. It's an absolute honor, as well as a shock. I didn't know there were people interested to know my journey. It's not extraordinary. I'm just a regular human being who's, of course, worked hard in this country where we had no support, we didn't know anybody, we didn't have any social network. So for sure it was hard, but, you know, as they say, everything is destined, and I would like to credit my destiny for wherever I am today. I'd also like to give the credit to my parents who've raised me in a way that I was ready to face any challenge that was thrown at me. So my journey started in Canada in 2009. I'm a typical immigrant, came to Canada on a spousal open work permit. We all know that. It was very, it was a very new kind of a work permit that they started at that time, and my husband wanted to study here. I had recently got married, and I of course wanted to come with him because I was young and I was newly married. So I came to Canada with him, and my husband went to Schulich School of Business to do his MBA. And of course, one of us had to work. So I started working at HSBC. It was very hard. We didn't know anybody in Canada. I would, from morning to evening, I would work, come home, do like everybody else does. Again, nothing unusual. I'm not going to take the credit for that. And then I got pregnant with my first child. And after that, of course, with a new baby, things become difficult. My husband graduated, and before he graduated, we had the baby. I knew I didn't want to go back to my job after the baby because I knew it's going to be so hard with me, with my husband working, and a new baby, no family here, no parents. So I decided I'm going to start my own business. I come from a business family, so my father runs a travel business in India. So I thought, I'm going to expand his business here, and I started my own venture. 6 months into the business, my husband was laid off from his job. and we had no money, literally no money. So he said, okay, I'm going to support you in your business, and we're going to be together. We're going to make this business work. Everybody would tell us, like, the whole travel industry is moving towards online portals, and here you are getting into a brick and mortar travel agency. Like, how is it even going to work out? But we didn't have a choice. We didn't have the money. We didn't have the knowledge to start an IT, like an online portal. So we said, we'll just go with the flow. Of course, we had a unique business idea. We wanted to do luxury travel for Canadians who wanted to travel to India. So we started doing that. Again, as we call destiny, we got lucky. We started getting clients. We would market it like that. But we weren't making money. It was hard. We had to go through a lot of financial stress. And then gradually, I started getting people who started asking us about immigration. And I thought that, we obviously researched about it, and we found out that it's a licensed profession, and I cannot just get into it. So I had a new baby. We were struggling. We didn't know what to do. I thought, let me just start doing this program at Humber College. And I enrolled myself at Humber College in 2015. I completed my program, got my license, and then started, accepting clients for immigration. In that way, I was lucky because I already had exposure to a client base because we had the travel business running. So it was easy for us to get out there and, to market myself that, I can help you with immigration. And I started taking on cases. And then 1 case, 2 cases, and gradually, I started getting cases. It was a lot word of mouth. And again, destiny. I was getting success. I was getting clients. So it worked for us. But then in the meantime, I had my second child. We had a lot of debt. But of course, we had this business running, the travel business, and then, of course, the immigration business. And I was trying to, set this up. And I started marketing, I started Google AdWords, I started going to networking events. My existing travel business helped me. And I kept getting clients, and it just kept working for me. Now, in all of this, I knew that integrity was the most important thing for me. I was getting opportunities where people would come to me and be like, can you get us an LMIA? Can you get me an employer who can run my payroll? And when I was at Humber College, when I was studying, one of my professors, he just said one thing that has remained with me. Just like, how I would say, it just stuck with me that no matter the amount of money you get, nothing is worth your license. And that thing just remained with me in the way that I was determined that no matter what happens, I will not do anything that would jeopardize my license or would jeopardize my reputation in the industry. Even today, when I get clients who come to me and if I can help them with running a payroll, or I could help them with getting an LMI and how much it would cost. In the beginning, when I started, I would think, how do you say no? Like people don't want to deal with you if you're saying no to them. But then I learned that, at some point I had to say no. Even if I was losing clients, I did say no. And today, I realized that a lot of people come to me only because of the fact that they know that they can trust me. I'm not going to do anything in their application that will cause, if I'm not confident about it, I'll tell them. Even if there's a new program that I'm doing, I'll give you a very small example. Recently, a client came to me and he said he wanted to do a PEI PNP application with me. And It was, I had never done a PEI application. Like, I do a lot of OINPs, I do Manitoba PNP, I've done pretty much all the PNPs, but I had not touched the PEI PNP. And I told him, listen, I've never done this before, but I'm happy to do it for you. And he's like, but if you don't know it, how are you going to do it? I'm like, that's your choice. I can assure you that I will, if I'm not competent enough during the process, I will either refer to you to another colleague, or I will just back out. I will not submit your application if I'm not 100% confident to do it. He went to another colleague, he went to the person who had actually referred him to me. And it's funny that the person who had referred, he said, you're going to do it yourself. If you do it yourself, you're going to read it and do it. She's going to read it for you, but in a better way, and do the application in a better way for you. He came back to me, and despite knowing that I had never done that application before, he still had the confidence in me, and I did it for him. So I never shy away from telling my clients the actual situation, the ground reality, so that their expectations are set right. I want to make sure that at the end, if my client's confidence in me is the most important for me. And this is not just for the immigration industry. I think this just goes in general. This is how we should deal with our relationships as well. It's all about transparency, about setting that expectation in that relationship right. I mean, if the other person who's communicating with you feels that confidence with you, then you know you've won half the battle, because you've established that relationship, and then from there on, it's a mutual relationship that you all carry forward. Another experience, I mean, this industry has been so overwhelming for me that I'm so passionate about it. I have 2 young children. Of course, they're much older now. One of them is 10, 11 years. The older one is 7, 8. But for me, my business is just like my baby, because this is what I started when my firstborn was born. So for me, I've put my heart and soul into it, and the amount of time I spend in the office is more than the amount of time I spend at home. And the relationships that I build with my client are so strong that even after I have completed their work, they still want to stay in touch with me. They start calling me Shefali, then from Shefali I move on to being a ma'am, and then from ma'am to calling me Didi. I don't know how many of you understand, but Didi is somebody that you refer to or address like an older sister in Hindi. I mean, it's an English word, but in Hindi we address an older sister as Didi. So that journey from being Shefali to Didi is so overwhelming that makes me feel so proud, able to gain their trust that they make me their family member. You know, so many experiences in this industry. Well, I did, a client came to me in 2020, just before the COVID hit. She came to my office to a referral, and she was sitting in my office, and she was telling me that her husband had already received 7 refusals. 3 of visitor visas and 4 for spousal open work permit. And looking at me, she was telling me her story, and she was crying. When she came to Canada as an international student, she didn't know that she was pregnant. And the day she landed here, a few weeks later, she found out that she was pregnant, and she told her husband, I'm pregnant. And they started applying for the visitor visa and the spousal open work permit so that he could join her here for her delivery. But IRCC kept refusing her husband's visa. So she delivered her baby on her own without any family support, just with the help of 2 19-year-old roommates who had no idea what postpartum was. So that gave me goosebumps. When she was telling me that story, it gave me goosebumps. And I was like, okay, I don't know about anybody else, but your husband needs to be here. And we started that process of getting him the work permit. We did the application. Of course, during COVID, it was taking much longer for work permit applications to be approved. But the day her application was approved, I know that look on her face and her husband's face when they called me, when I called them to tell them that your visa is approved, was the best feeling in the world. And that is what we work for each day, every day, to help those vulnerable who go through so much. And it's a dream for so many people to come to Canada. Once we arrive in Canada, you know what, we think it's not a big deal. I mean, okay, we're here. But the people who are trying to get here or for whom things are not working out, we're making a change in their lives. And that's what impacts us. And the amount of blessings we get, you know, through this process. So that's what is extremely, extremely special to me. And that is what drives me to, you know, do more and more in this industry and to help more and more people. And that's my journey, really, you know, lots of hard work, but I think that's what everybody does. Just keep at it, especially, you know, new RCICs in this room. Don't think that, you know, if it's not happening in the first month, in the second month, in the third month, it will ultimately happen. You just have to keep at it. Rome was not built in a day, as they say. It takes multiple, you know, I'd say even failures for that matter, to ultimately get success. So even if there's one person in this room, especially women, if you feel that at any point you feel like giving up, don't do that, because it will ultimately work out. You just have to keep at it. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you so much, Shefali, for sharing your journey with us. It was really, really inspiring, and I think what we can highlight from this story is, or from this real actually story, is the fact that work ethics, you know, commitment and work ethics really comes on top of everything that we do in this profession, right? You're building a long-term commitment, and I keep always saying, you're building a long-term commitment with your clients. The one that is coming for a study permit today is applying for permanent residence in a few years and applying for citizenship in a few years. If they trust you, they will keep coming back. And really, the loop keeps growing and growing. They'll bring their family members and friends and so on and so forth. So really, thank you again, Shefali, for sharing your experience with us. It was very, very much appreciated. Thank you. So before we move on, I know folks have been coming from their offices, from work. So we do have some refreshments at the back here. Please feel free to grab some refreshments. As we mentioned, meat is halal, so please, you know, indulge. We do have some vegetarian options as well. There's coffee, tea, water at the back throughout the whole event, so feel free to grab any time. We'll give it just a few minutes for people to help themselves before we start the panel discussion. All right, thank you.
ਤੇਰਾ ਯਾਰ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਗੱਡੀ ਲੈਂਬਰਗਿਨੀ ਪੀਲੇ ਰੰਗ ਦੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਏ ਚਲਾਵੇ slowly ਉਹ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਗੇਰ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੋੜਦੀ ਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਨੀ ਏ the one and only ਵਿਚਾਰੇ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਪੁਕਾਰ ਮਖਾਟ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੀ ਤੂੰ ਫਾਰ ਰੱਬ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਗੈਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲੇ
hello again, everyone. May I have your attention, please? Closer? Closer. Right, closer. May I have your attention, please? All right, I think we have a good break. I hope everyone had a chance to get the refreshments. And we are about to start with a very, very interesting expert discussion on the topic of LMIAs and work permits. May I have your attention, please, once again? Yeah. I know we're all hungry, and I know we all came from our work, but we want to get restarted once again. Okay, so to resume our session, as we mentioned again, we will have an expert discussion on LMIAs and work permits. So can I start calling people to the stage, our panel of experts? Can we start with Kubair Kamal? Please. A round of applause for Mr. Kubair Kamal, please. Thank you. And Prabjot Randawa. Yeah, she's here, coming. A round of applause for Jot. Thank you. And Joy Doe. Another round of applause for Joy, please. Thank you. And Sebastian. And thanks to people who made it from Quebec and from different provinces. Sebastian just landed and made his way to the conference here. Thank you. And can we have Shafoli once again? A round of applause for Shafoli. And who is going to lead us for that discussion? Jeff. Welcome. So you can have a seat, please. Yeah. Can they work? They can work together. Okay. So before giving the microphone to Jeff, since he will lead this discussion for us, it's very interesting that we're talking about LMIAs and work permits, yet we have some experts in LMIAs, and we have experts in LMIA exemption. So I'm really, really looking forward for that discussion, and I know Jeff will have this in mind for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. So basically, Kaushik has asked us to speak about LMIAs, the need for LMIAs, the differences between LMIAs. We thought this would be a good opportunity for everybody to understand maybe the differences between LMIAs. And I think what we would start with is named, unnamed, low wage, high wage, that kind of thing, just to give everybody a little bit of an introduction to the subject, because I noticed that when we're talking in our groups and stuff, there's a lot of kind of confusion as to when an LMIA is even required, right? We're going to get into exemptions and work permit after that, but we're going to flow into some of the ethical barriers that present themselves with LMIAs, representing both the candidate and the employer and what can happen as a result of that. Also some things that might come out of an abusive workplace when you're representing the employer and the candidate, and then it becomes an abusive workplace. So I think, Joy, maybe we can start with LMIAs. Sorry to put you the first person, but I was told you're the LMIA person, so. So if maybe you could introduce essentially an LMIA is needed at all times, right? Unless there's an exemption. But if you could maybe start going into named versus unnamed, and then an LMIA versus a PR LMIA maybe, or something, just the slight differences in the system.
Okay, so some LMIA we need to have name, Some we don't need name. So lots of clients want to phone and ask you, okay, this LMA, can we change name later on? Can we leave it blank? So there are some differences, okay? So for low wage and high wage, we can leave it blank, or we can put name and we change name later, okay? For PR support, we cannot change name. The moment it issued, it's done. So we can change, let's say at the time during the interview, the officer asks you, and maybe at that time you can change right that moment. You say, oh, sorry, this one already back out. You can change at last moment. But once it issued, it's done.
Good, good. And then maybe Sebastian, if you talk about like when they're actually needed, you know, if you can kind of touch at the beginning of it, I guess, right? Like when an LMIA, when an employer would seek out an LMIA.
Yeah, well, I really,
or you can even, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You could even finish off what Joy is saying there.
Sorry? Oh.
No, you can finish off what Joy was saying as well.
Oh, well, I was about to say that I'm really not the expert in LMIA. I'm actually the LMIA exempt expert.
We'll get to that, don't worry.
I've done a few still, and like you said, an LMIA is always needed it's basically always needed, except if there's an exemption, right? So if you want to hire someone like a foreign national, you need an LMIA, and except if there is some circumstances for where this person can be exempt, and then depending on, of course, the province and you have to determine the wage to know if you are in the high wage LMIA or low wage LMIA. And also in Quebec, we also have what they call a simplified LMIA. So it's the easiest way to get an LMIA when you have to do an LMIA.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go through posting ads and recruiting trying to recruit some Canadian or PR for the job. But yeah.
And maybe, I think, Shafoli, you were touching on in your introduction speech about the potential ethical issues that may appear in LMIAs. So,
yes.
You know, if maybe you want to
I'm a big ethics person.
Yeah.
All right, so before that, I'm going to come to that. I'm going to be super quick because I talk fast. But I'd like to add on to what Seb said. So when do you really need an LMI? Anybody in Canada or outside Canada can need an LMI. People who already have work permits can also need an LMI because sometimes they need those extra 50 points in express entry. And in those cases, when they already have a work permit, you can just do an LMI for PR support to get them the 50 points. There's no cost involved in it. There's no $1,000 government fee that you pay, but you can get them just a PR support LMI for 50 points to get in the express entry pool to boost up their score. Now, if there is somebody who needs a PR support as well as a work permit, they could be inside Canada, outside Canada. You can do an LMI for those candidates as well. I think it is more that you will learn with experience. When you start doing LMIs, that's when you will know when is the right time to do an LMI for low wage, high wage, or when you can do a PR support. There are a lot of factors that go into it. If you're doing a NOC-B, the candidate is eligible for express entry, then you can do a PR support. That's easier to get approved. If you're doing, just for work permit, and the candidate is probably outside Canada. I rarely do low wage, high wage anymore because most of my clients are inside Canada and they're usually express entry candidates. I personally feel that PR support LMIs are easier to get approved if the employer is eligible. The employer needs to be at least 1 year in business for you to be able to do a PR support LMI. Otherwise, you can only do a low wage or a high wage LMI. Another big thing that I wanted to say was that and I forgot. I'll come back to that if I...
That's okay, no problem.
Now about ethics.
Yes.
Ethics. Please, never sell LMIs. It is my request. Unless we stop doing that, this industry won't change.
Thank you. So, Prabhat, maybe you can just kind of pick pick right up on that, on the ethical, or the relationship between the consultant and the employer, as well as the relationship with the consultant and the client.
I think, again, like Shefali was saying, most of the clients are also those who are eligible for express entry but want the boost of 50 points. So clients would come and say, our employer is supporting, how do we proceed? So I think our responsibility at that point is to tell them that, you are not our client. Our client for LMIA is your employer. So employer is supposed to contact us, get their documentation ready, and then we move to do the application, do the, if they need help with advertisement, do that, get the LMIA done. And then the clients come to you. That's where your client comes to you, that is a student or a worker, foreign worker. And then they have to do their process. And an ethical thing to do at that point is that first the employer was our client. Now the foreign worker is our client. So to maintain that difference between both the clients, how do you proceed with that will set up the base for you.
And I think that touches on the new regulations too, where we're obligated to identify conflict,
yes,
right,
so
or potential conflict.
Exactly. So
right,
who's your client first, and then who's your client second, and that depends on application. LMIA, your client is employer, and when you move forward to work permit or to do your express entry.
Yeah, and I think the motivation for the client, the candidate, and the candidate and the employer is different, right? The RCIC's motivation is obviously going to be money-based on the employer,
exactly,
which could make the consultant kind of start looking at things a little differently and maybe counseling them in a wrong way because it's more profitable for the RCIC to generate the LMIA.
Exactly.
Right?
Push them into getting it instead of giving them other options. I'll give an example here. So instead of, there are skilled trades. Mm-hmm. Instead of someone guided some client that, or foreign worker that, get me the LMIA done from employer, but instead of getting LMIA, why don't you approach College of Trades?
Yes.
Ontario College of Trades, get the trade certification done, and they will get similar points instead of getting the LMIA 50 points. Yep. And they'll get 50 points for that. So again, yes, doing LMIA will benefit us more in terms of getting money from which is more compared to getting helping the student or worker get skilled trade certification done from Ontario College of Trade or whatever Red Seal. So yes, the ethics do come in.
Yeah,
here,
I mean, and I think that Kabir, you were touching earlier on, early in the week, talked about the TR to PR and how the unethical consultant might or lawyer might start pushing for things that are not in the client's best interest. And I think that in the LMIA's case, that can happen when, as an example, a candidate who has an employer and hires the spouse, okay, the principal applicant. And then instead of potentially pushing a provincial nomination where a spouse might get a open work permit, pushing an LMIA on the spouse, right? So now the RCIC sees, the employer is willing to pay for 2 LMIAs, but meanwhile the better opportunity was with the, in the client's case, the better opportunity was with the PNP because the spouse gets the open work permit, right? So LMIAs are, I believe, the slippery slope of where it's so tempting to go down a different way. So I think those are the potential problems I identify with being in a relationship with both the employer and the consultant. And I think many people try to do it where they have, just using Kabir as an example, me and Kabir might represent the employee and he might represent the employer. But at the end of the day, it's still just a conflict painted in a different brush. Right, you've just tried to do something a little bit more sneaky, right? But Kabir, I think if we touch on what the liabilities would be, do you think for an RCIC? Like if for example, you're representing the employer and the candidate, the client. The client then discovers it's an abusive workplace and applies for the vulnerable open work permit. Well, you now represent the client, in a vulnerable open work permit situation, and you represent the employer in the LMIA. So where are the ethical boundaries there, do you think?
So from all those questions, the most difficult one was for me, right? So you're talking about the liabilities for an RCIC when
Or
representing... Potential liabilities. Yeah. Okay. So basically, I'm sure all of you have your liability insurance, right? So it's covered.
Exactly. Just call Petrie Scott.
Whatever happens there, it's covered in most probable cases. But in most situations, it would be, if it's an abusive workplace, the liability doesn't come on you directly, at least not if your retainer has been very well stated or clarified. But yes, you could be involved in the investigation that might take place. You might become part of, I don't know, if the employee decides to sue the employer, you might become part of the investigation. You might seriously have issues when you're trying to then explain where did your interest lie and where was the conflict in this whole arrangement. I would rather stay away from representing both sides when something like this happens. And also the Code of Ethics very clearly states that you cannot be a recruiter. You cannot be recruiting while you're also then processing or providing immigration services. So as long as you are aware or familiar with your services that you're providing and where the boundary is, you usually would not get into that situation. But yes, it does happen. It usually happens in construction field. It happens in agriculture field. It is also now being seen in the seasonal workers, especially in the Atlantic provinces, people who are coming for the farming and
the pickers.
Yeah. And not only that, recently there has been an instance where some truckers were also involved and they have decided to sue the employer because their insurance were not covered, especially for any liabilities while they were delivering the loads.
Yeah.
And again, I personally know of the RCIC who has gotten involved with this whole process. Thankfully, his contract was very clear with the employers and the employee as to what his contribution or his role is. But yes, it can be a serious issue.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, as an individual who's representing or who's trying to represent both, if you have been very clear in your retainer as to what is your service, what is your contribution within the whole service, then you should be all right.
And something to think about that I think some of us all at one point don't see the long game. So you might see this is a good opportunity with this LMIA and this candidate. But what you don't know is that if the investigation takes place in the background, for example, IRCC and CBSA can simply search by your email address and see every single case that you have attached yourself to in your entire career, right? So if there's an investigation somewhere going on, like that's in an LMIA situation, right? You know, they will link you at one point or another. And so understanding where you want to be in your career and where you want to be with your reputation, because once it's gone, you're never getting it back, right? So especially with IRCC, like they'll have some credit. Eventually, IRCC officers will eventually recognize your submissions, and ESDC especially. I find them very helpful as opposed to IRCC, but they'll eventually come to know your paperwork, and if they know you on the wrong side of things, well, good luck getting an approval from that point forward. Right, or you know, so that's something to think about as well. But drifting from LMIAs, I guess, in conflict. And the other thing is, I guess the obvious thing would be the collection of fees.
Sorry, if you don't mind, I just want to add something small here. To all the practitioners here, to all the fellow colleagues here, by and large, most of the RCICs, I know a lot of you are new here, a lot of you have just recently got a license. I mean, I'm not very old, especially as the license is concerned, but a lot of us concentrate on the economic immigration. The express entries, the spousal work permits, the postgraduate work permits, very few steer into or basically venture into the LMIA business or the business immigration kind of the business, or even the C10, C11, C12 kind of, you know, because everybody's scared. Because what if we do not know what's going to happen? How are we going to present ourselves to our clients? But that is one area where you will find there is plenty of opportunity whether it's with the businesses, whether it's with the clients. There are so many options over there you can explore. There are so many options over there which can actually benefit you in the long run. Yes, obviously, if you haven't done one, it will take some time. Find somebody who can help you, find somebody who can mentor you. But once you get onto that, trust me, you would not want to do postgraduate work permit applications. It will be a waste of your time. So just a small, absolute, unsolicited advice, if you want to call it, but do look into that aspect of the business. You might start slow, okay, but don't go for the low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit is not always sweet. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend a lot of time on a $300 application fee, or you can learn something in an ESTC application, and develop a relationship with an employer who's going to be, a long-term relationship which will benefit you longer, right? It's very difficult when you first get started because there's a lot of expenses, a lot of output, and not a lot of input, incoming money. So it's very tempting to say, how will I afford all of this, right? And so it's very, it's very interesting to have be in a gas station and have the employer say to you, oh yeah, like I'll do an LMIA for you, or I'll hire a shift supervisor. What do I get out of it? Why should I help this guy? You know what? Like as soon as he says, why should I help this person? Turn and walk away because he wants $20,000, right? So drifting from that conversation, Sebastian, I thought we could get into our favorite conversation of flagpoling and port of entry applications. The differences maybe between open and closed permits, and you can kind of take it from there with the LMIA exempt style work permits.
Okay, yeah, so I have a presentation coming after that about POEs, but yeah, we can talk about that now. Yeah, I do a lot of my application at POEs. I know some people say that maybe I do too much of those at the POEs. I don't know. Yeah, so, and I'm specialized in, let's say, LMIA exempt, and especially like Francophone immigration because of my background, of course. And, we have this C16 LMIA exempt work permit. Like if an employer wants to hire a Francophone person outside of Quebec, then they're LMIA exempt if it's in a skilled position, right? Yeah. So I do a lot of those. Many of my clients actually, what they do is that they come here as a visitor and they look around for a job, which, I mean, it's not technically forbidden, so they do that. And once they find a job, again, a skilled job in outside Quebec, preferably, and then they go to a POE because they are told that it's very fast and so on. So in one of my slides, you'll see later on, there's it's actually a rip-off from another slide that was presented at NCIC this year. They say you shouldn't use the POE option just for convenience. But I think I do that too. I mean, no, the thing is that usually you set the date, the start date of the work close to where you want to go to the POE, and then it's not convenience anymore. It's just urgency. Become urgency because you have to start like in 5 or 10 days. And as of now, I didn't have a lot of rejection. I mean, I usually what I do is that I send to a POE when they can. Of course, I mean, I will mention that in my talk, but of course you have to check many things. You have to prepare your client, you have to check their US histories and stuff like that, of course. Not everyone can go to the POE, but when they go there, I send them there, and if it gets refused, first of all, the application never gets refused at the POE. What they refuse is to do the application. Right. They don't just do it and then refuse it for like lack of paper or something. They just say, I don't want to do it. And so it's not a failed application. It's just they don't want to do it. So
where they tend to run into difficulties, I find at the port of entry is not necessarily like the application process, like you're saying, but more so that the traveler is unprepared to deal with the officer.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's his engagement with the officer that usually causes the problem, right? And as we've talked about in the group, many a person is sitting in India right now because they said the wrong thing at the port of entry, right? So, what do you think is I often see just send them to the port of entry or go to the port of entry, but when can a person go to the port of entry? Because if they're only visa exempt people can apply at the port of entry and a couple of others, when would a person be able to apply at the port of entry?
Yeah, well, if you ask me, almost every time.
Other than a French person.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's something I will talk in my talk after that. But yeah, we had this discussion in the group at some point with, I think, Indian colleagues, and you were there too, I think.
We go back and forth a couple times.
Yeah, exactly, about this visit to the US, like about this 190 sub 3 sub F, saying that anyone, even if their visa required, can go to the POE. I mean, basically they can be visa exempt if they leave Canada and come back. If they have a status in Canada, leave and come back, they can be visa exempt. And since they are visa exempt, they can apply for a work permit at the POE. So it can be anyone. It could be Indian. It could be my first was someone from Morocco, obviously visa required country, and yeah, it worked. I didn't want to do it at first because I thought that the visit was, you have to enter the US and come back. And,
So these are the positive things that can happen at the POE, right? But Kabir, what do you think is like some negative things that can occur at the port of entry?
Well, first thing, flag polling should be absolutely the last option. It should never ever be the first option because a lot of things can go wrong at the port of entry. A lot of people just assume that everything is going to be a walk in the park once you flag poll. And there are even some TikTok videos, and
you love your TikTok.
I love my TikTok, right? I mean, it's always a pet peeve, but there are also some TikTok videos which have been suggesting to people that when you are arriving from India at the airport, apply for a work permit. You are not eligible, okay? But it's so difficult to explain when you're trying to then circumvent that, but a lot of things can go wrong at the port of entry. And that should absolutely be a last option. Even when you have a client, that should not be your first suggestion. That should not be the first option you should be telling your client that go to the port of entry. Because once the person is exited Canada, gone to the US soil, taken a U-turn, come back with a yellow piece of paper, or nowadays I think it's blue sometimes. And at that point of time, they're again subject to questions, right? Again, they have to establish that they're eligible to enter Canada again. That's the first, the admissibilities.
Yep.
And from there on, the purpose. Now, when the purpose happens, people have been issued removal orders for the smallest of things.
Yep.
People who are in a rush to get a postgraduate work permit, they rush to the port of entry because somebody tells them, get it today. Once they go there, and very recently somebody had this situation where the person was asked, when did you finish your studies? That was not the first question. The first question was, when did you stop working? The person said 31st of August. When did you finish your studies? She said 25th of August. So that was 5 days that she was working when she was not allowed to work.
Yeah.
Her passport was taken and she was,
Yeah, it's a common thing. When you're at the port of entry, you're dealing with the CBSA, and right, and their mandate is different, right? The mandate of the CBSA is to determine entry and whether or not you're allowed to enter, right? Their mandate is also to do immigration, like their IRCC, but they're doing it from the perspective of enforcement as opposed to facilitation. And for example, you can be at the port of entry and the officer will say, let me see your cell phone.
Absolutely.
And they don't need a warrant to search your phone. You have to give it to them. And you'll see a text message that says, report to work on Monday for your training.
Yeah.
And that gets you an exclusion order. Right?
So cell phones have been a downfall for many,
yes,
as a lot of people will tell you. But yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I would never recommend flag polling as the first option.
Yes.
That should always be the absolute last resort if nothing else is going to work out. Yes, I understand a lot of people are in a rush. They want to sort of get their work permits done today. They want to get their work permits done yesterday. But sometimes for their benefit, for their, that should not be the recommendation.
Yeah, so Shafali, when people do come from the US, like we were talking about, what happens to their maintained status, right? So like, for example, they're in Canada, they're on their whatever status it happens to be, they enter into the United States, and then they're returning back. So if they were working, they've left Canada, but they've only gone to the United States.
On a maintained status?
On maintained status.
Well, you lose your status then.
So yeah. So
If you have a TRV on your passport and you're on a maintained status, they will only let you enter as a visitor, even if you don't have. Sometimes I've come across people who do that, and this happened very recently with somebody. In fact, it was a colleague of mine who called me in a panic situation that my client applied for spousal sponsorship, and we've applied for their inland work permit, and their the original work permit had expired, and he was a truck driver. So he went to he was coming back from the border, from the U.S. And when he entered, the officer, the CBSA officer was like, hello, you don't have a work permit. And he's like, oh, but I'm on maintained status and my PR is almost done, everything is approved. And he's like, okay, you're coming in as a visitor and you come back to the Windsor border in 30 days. So yeah, your client should never leave the country on maintained status. I think only on PGWP and the new the PGWP extension that they've offered is when you can leave the country and still come back on implied status. But any other work permit, you can come back on an implied status. You have to enter as a visitor, and you have to go back to the border to report after 30 days.
Right. So the difference being is you still have temporary resident status.
A visitor, but that's at the discretion of the visa of the CBSA officer. They might not let you enter, but most cases they do let you enter if you're coming from the US, because they can't send you to the US, right? That's not your home country. So they will let you come in and give you a certain time to stay and then ask you to report back.
I think the most important thing about attending the border is understanding what the role of the CBSA officer is and what their powers are and what their moods are.
So that's what I'd like to add to what Kuber said. I don't think that our role as immigration consultants is to tell the client what to do and what not to do, but what our role is to educate them. You need to set the expectations right. This is how I would do it. If my client comes to me and tells me, I want to go to the port of entry, sure, go, no problem. But I'll tell you what could happen and what could not happen. And you tell them, some of my clients are really confident, they can handle it. I'll let them go. But then if I know that somebody is not very confident, I'll tell them, you might not be able to answer those questions because they can be rude, because they want to intimidate you, so that, because they just check your body language. I mean, if you're this has happened with me. I accompanied one of my clients to, I don't usually go because I feel it's very disrespectful, the way they treat us, but I don't go. But if I feel that my client really is in a pressing situation and needs to go, and they're not confident enough, I'll go with them. And even with us, I've seen they'll first just be like, oh, we don't want to talk to you, go sit there. But then your body language is what speaks for you. If you're confident, if your client's confident, they'll get it. But if they're not confident, sure.
Exactly, and I think that it's important to know that at the port of entry, if as a consultant we say that we're going to go with our client, that they're not even technically entitled to representation.
Exactly.
Right, so until that there's been a report written against them, then they are entitled, but only if the representation is present at that moment.
Sometimes they just need moral support.
That's right. So it's good to show up with the client, but I think you hit on an important part, is rather than solving the problem or telling them just flagpole or just do this or whatever, I think you're right. It's to say, here's your option. Option A is this, but here's what could happen.
That's
Option
right.
B is this. Here's what could happen. And then you make the decision.
Exactly. So that it doesn't ultimately come on you, oh, but you told me to do that. No, I did not. I just educated you. This could happen and this could not happen.
That's right. With the new code of conduct and the new regulations, right, everything is coming back to us now. So it's very possible, very likely that you're likely to face a complaint or more likely to face a complaint now than we would have faced a complaint in the past.
And you know what? Believe me or not, when you educate your client and you tell them all of this, they themselves don't want to go.
Yeah. I find that the biggest problem with clients is other clients, right? Because somebody has told them something and they believe it to be true, and whatever that person told them, because they had a success story, they think it will be a success story every point forward from there. So they don't understand that, the problem with dealing with the CBSA at the port of entry, for example, is that even if the officer is wrong, the officer's not wrong, right? Go ahead.
I'll add on that. I did have a client like this who was a truck driver. Again, same mistake. Same mistake. Applied for extension. I told him not to cross the border after your initial work permit expires. And he said 3 days before his work permit was expiring, he asked the CBSE officer, can I cross the border? And CBSE officer said, yes, you can go. He did go, and when his work permit expired, he came back a day after. CBSE officer said, you cannot come in now. And if I do let you come in, I would have to cancel your extension. You can't continue working. You don't have a maintenance status anymore. And then he's saying, oh, but the officer said you can go. And he said, did he say that you can come back? You can go, yeah, that's fine.
That's right.
But you can't come back.
The CBSA officers are known to tell you whatever you need to hear to get out of that conversation.
Exactly.
Right? So they'll just tell you whatever you need to hear right then and there.
Exactly.
Right? And not concern themselves with the next interaction.
Yeah.
Right?
And
So
his at the end of the day, he said, well, I saw this TikTok video and this guy mentioned this.
TikTok.
So I was like, okay, then, you know what, get your file to him and get your work done from him now. But then he was stuck again. Officer told that your truck is getting towed.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
drive back. Exactly.
That's right.
They
That's
get
right.
it right back to home, and you're not supposed to work anymore until your other work permit is being processed, and I'm reporting your file.
Yeah. So this basically kind of sums up the potential of and the differences, identifying some of the differences that of dealing with the CBSA versus dealing with the IRCC, right? Because they're two completely different departments, two completely different mandates, two completely different perspectives. The officers IRCC are typically trained to be facilitative because they're legacy CIC officers, and the CIC department was typically a facilitative department. Whereas when it got amalgamated into the CBSA, it became more of because they're all border services officers now, the legacy CIC officers hang on to the facilitative thing, and the newer officers hang on to the enforcement. And they all want to demonstrate their power. Every single one of them want to demonstrate their power. So this conversation basically is just to kind of give you guys some information, maybe shed a little bit of light on the ethical things of LMIAs, the temptations that exist there, the please avoid those situations, the port of entry, the perils of potential port of entry issues, because you show up at the port of entry and you could be on an exclusion order, and your application that you have pending is gone, just like that. So something to think about. I don't know if anybody wants to say something on the way out, but we're wrapping up this little panel.
No, I'm sorry. I don't want to say anything else. I mean, I just want to sort of, if everybody can put your hands together and round of applause for Kaushik.
Yes.
And the team of volunteers who have. And of course, the team of the volunteers. I mean, I don't know the names. I'm sure you'll be announcing the names at some point of time. And thank you, CIC Network. This was a great opportunity. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. You can hold that.
Okay, so the bar is open. So those who are interested may get their complimentary coupons from Manish. Manish, can you please raise your hand so that everybody knows who Manish is? Yeah. So Manish is there. You guys can get your. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. It's Rachit. You can get your complimentary coupons from Rachit and enjoy the bar. So. Sorry, I was
the created a new account. You created a new account. Okay, there we go. That's it. Right.
Oh, what's this? It says sign in. Yeah, it says sign in. You want to just plug it out so for some time or it's good?
Yeah, let me just plug this out. What is that? Where's the?
How do we like put this as a yeah, there it says sign in. And then it closes off.
Oh, okay. I'll do it then. That's fine.
That's okay. People will have some time to talk and network.
We insisted to create a separate account for today's event, so I'm not logged in anywhere here.
Is there anything we can do?
No, I'll get it going. It's just that sign in on your browser. Where do I sign in on the browser?
everybody's attention, please? Okay, so next up we have a former research scientist and the founder of Up North Immigration Consulting, INC. He is a graduate from the University of British Columbia, a member in good standing of CICC and CAPEC. Sebastian provides advisory services in several areas of Canadian immigration law to individuals and families whose goal is to settle whether temporarily or permanently in Canada. Member of the Francophone Immigration Network of British Columbia since 2014 and several associations. Sebastian is widely recognized for his involvement and his leadership in the Francophone community in Canada. So a big round of applause for Sebastian, who will be sharing his tips and tricks with regards to the port of entry procedures. Over to you, Sebastian.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight.
Guys, please, we want some silence so that Sebastian, you all can hear him very well. I would really appreciate all of you to sit down.
Closer. Okay, so before I start, I just want again to thank all the organization and Kaushik, everyone there. So far, it's a very good evening. So yeah, give a round of applause for all the organization. Kaushik. So, and also I'm very happy to see many people from last year, because I don't know if you remember last year, for those who were there. I forgot their name, but there was a senior RCIC who said that the first year was always the hardest one, right? And the other people are giving up after the first year, right? And that's why I'm so happy to see many people returning this year. So that's good. So I'm going to talk today about the port of entry procedures and give you some tips and tricks. It's now it's very hard for me to talk about this, because on the panel we just had, I will feel like the reckless guy that sent all his clients to the POE, but that's what I do. So, you want to know? Okay. So my talk is going to be very short. It's kind of a rip-off from a talk that was given at the NCIC this year in Ottawa. So for those people who were there, it's going to be the same thing, more or less, plus some of my experience. For those who are not there and want to see this talk, it's a very great talk from Tiffany Chi and Phil Moy. Yeah, and it was very enlightening talk, because during this talk, they actually settled the debate we had on the group about what constitutes a visit to the US, because you know, I will talk about that later, but you know, and I talked that in the panel, that some people, even if they are not visa exempt, they can apply for work permit at the port of entry, right? But the regulation said that they have to come back after a visit from the US. And there was a lot of discussion about this term visit. Is it when you have to enter the US to visit or not? And during this talk, they actually settled the score for me at least. And they convinced me to actually do it more. Because before that, I was not doing it for not visa exempt people. So just before I start, just to give you a few numbers about the border. So I have to read my slide actually. So there are more than 30 million people crossing the line, the Canadian border to the US, back and forth every year. And tens of thousands of people who cross the border are doing it for immigration purposes, right? And as we discussed before in the panel, the CBOSA officer, they have to be multitask, because they, of course, can give work permits, study permit, and stuff like this, deal with like immigration stuff, but they also have to deal with law enforcement, agriculture, taxes, and lots of things like this. So they really are very busy, and sometimes it's very easy to understand that they don't want to do this thing with you, and they are not very conciliant, or they are sometimes people perceive them as mean, but they are not really mean. They just they have a lot on their plate. As from the immigration, that's what we're interested in today. At the border, you can do many immigration procedures. So you can, of course, apply or collect a work permit, a study permit, visitor records. They also deal with TRPs. They are the one that lend you when you do the PR. They check your residency obligation sometime. And they also deal with refugees. So they do a lot of things at the border. Next. So as part of work permit and study permits go, at the border what you can do is, there are basically two things that you can do. In almost all the cases that where the people go to the border, they actually go with a approved application or pre-approved application. So they have basically their letter of the POE letter, the decision is made, their work permit or the study permit is approved, and they just go there to be issued the work permit, just to collect the work permit or the study permit. But sometimes you can also apply directly at the border for a work permit and the study permit. And if you look at the regulations, the Article 198 sub 1 explain that every person that is visa exempt can apply at the port of entry for work permit. It's very important to notice that they can apply, but that doesn't mean that the CBS officer has to give them the work permit. That's the thing. And for students, permit is the IRPR 214. But probably you know that, but only in order to apply for a study permit at the port of entry, you have to be a resident either from the US or from Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon or from Greenland. So basically the contiguous country. So maybe people don't know that, but Canada shares a border with the US, of course, but also with France. So if you go from Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon, you can apply for a study permit as well. I've never done it, but... what do we call flag polling? Flag polling is actually a process that describes the fact that of people leaving the country, like crossing the US to Canada border, in order to get insurance or application of their work permit or their visitor record. So they can go there for two reasons, like I said before. So they can go there because they have their POE letters and they want to collect their work permit or their study permit. So they cross the border, come back, and then they get their work permit. But as I said, visa exempt national, they can also go there without basically nothing, cross, and actually apply at the port of entry.
I would really appreciate everyone to please have some silence here. Sebastian is talking and all we can hear is you guys, so please. Guys, we have a very interesting topic going on here. So I would really appreciate all of you to maybe just bring on your glasses and sit on your table and listen to what Sebastian has to say. Are we good to go? Okay, all yours, Sebastian.
Yeah, it's going to be short, I promise. But this one maybe will blow your mind. It blew mine at the time. So when I was at the NCIC, and again, we had this discussion before on the group, it was maybe 10 days before NCIC, so it was really fresh. They showed this slide that you see on the top left there. And one of the notes said, temporary resident in valid status can apply at land POE even if they are not visa exempt. And we had this discussion. And for me, I did once before that time. I did one client in this case, but this client had a visa for the US, so he was able to enter the US and come back. And this way it was easy. And I thought all the applicants should be in this case. And yeah, so and that was a discussion we had in the group. You see, if you look at the regulation, it says to re-enter Canada following a visit to the US, and that was what triggered the conversation. So I was at the NCIC, and what I did is that I asked the question. So we had this application, and we could ask the question, and I was the one that asked the question. The question was, if you cannot read, can entry refusal to the US be considered as a visit to the US and allow people to be exempt from visa according to 190 sub 3 sub F, right? And all the panelists said they said yes, and this not changed my life, but changed my practice at least, because since then I said, okay, let's go, let's do not visa exempt people. Let's send them to the POE. Of course, when they can, I will show you a slide when what you need to check before you send them there. That was my first one after this session. So you never first. So a bit of background about this client. She was from Morocco. She is still from Morocco. She was a postgraduate work permit holder at that time. I guess she still has a postgraduate work permit because it's expiring. Oh no, it's expired already, sorry. So she was a PGWP holder, and she wanted to apply for C16 LMIA exemption work permit. So what I briefed them. We had a 2 hours conversation, and I explained them all what she has to say and not say at the POE, what to expect, and so on. And she went there. I couldn't drive her this time, but she went there by herself. And the application was denied. The first one was denied. So she went to one port of entry in BC, which called Pont Robert. So it's where I do all my application most of the time. So she went there. It was denied. The CBSC officer didn't want to do it. As I said before in the panel, the application is not rejected. The only thing is that they don't want to do it. They say, okay, we don't want to do it. What they say is that we use our quota for the day. There's no quota, but they just say that. They just don't want to say, I don't want to do it. They just get an excuse. So, but she came back. She was allowed to come back because she had a work permit. It was fine. That was June 15, and then 2 days later she tried at another POE, and she got the work permit there. So actually she went to a bigger work permit. The problem with the first one, I notice now, is that it's a small one. It's very good to do what I call fake flagpole. I will show you what it is. But since it's a small port of entry, they don't have a lot of people speaking French there. And when you go with a C16 application, they cannot assess your French, so it's better to go to a bigger one. But she had the French test, so it shouldn't be complicated. And as of today, I've made many applications at POE for visa exempt clients. And so far, and I started in June, my first client was in June, I did 12 applications at POE for non-visa exempt clients. I don't meet actually a lot of non-visa exempt clients because my clientele are from France, Switzerland, Belgium, so they're all like visa exempt at least. I don't do a lot with I do now a few people from African countries like Morocco, Algeria, Cameroon, but not before. This is another slide that I stole from the presentation at NCIC. And we talked about that earlier. So this is why and when should we do POE application, right? So as all the panelists said, it should be the last resort and it should be used for urgency, right? When you need to start quick or because there's a very long process due to COVID, you could use that. And in this slide, they said do not use that for your convenience. I don't know if I do that, but maybe I use it too much. But what I always show to my client, because my client, I mean, all your clients, maybe it's the same. They always want the work permit fast. Nobody come to me and say, oh, I want the work permit, but I can wait. It's fine. I can wait a month. So usually I told them, okay, you have 3 options. If you're in Canada, you have 3 options. You can apply from your country, so send it to your visa office in your country. Depending on the country, it could be weeks, months, I don't know. You can apply from inside Canada, because now you can with the, if you're a visitor, right? You can apply inside, you can apply from inside Canada. And this takes about 5 months now. It's very long. Or, that's why I tell them, or you can go to a POE and get it in a few hours. And they say, oh, I do that. But then, of course, you have to go with them and explain them what's going to happen. Okay, before I go to that, I will just want to show you some of the POEs that were recommended from the panel at that talk. You see, Bandari Bay is the one I was talking about, Pont Roberts, where my client was denied. That's the one I use all the time. But I say it's a POE to be avoided. I don't know why, but anyway. Also, I will mention that later, but it's always nice if you can. You don't have to go with your clients. I don't do that anymore. I used to do it, but I don't do that anymore. But it's always nice to go to a POE yourself, just to leave and come back. All of us are either PR or Canadian, so you're guaranteed to re-enter. So there's no risk for you to do that. So just go there and know the way and so on. So that's why I added 3 more POEs there: Cornwall, Lacolle, and Edmondson, because I went there and I tried them, and I know my clients usually they go there and it works perfectly. Cornwall is one of the best one actually. So for the tips and tricks, that's my last 2 slides. We talked to that in the panel. Always discuss the risk with your clients and prepare them for the worst outcomes possible. So you have to tell them that if they go there, since they're temporary resident and not permanent resident or Canadian, they are not guaranteed entry back. Never. It's not guaranteed. So they can always be refused, deported, or I don't think you can be worse than deported, but yeah. So yeah, always measure the risk with them. Prepare them. So what I do is that if my client wants to go to POE, I set up a special consultation with them, which I call special consultation for PO preparation. And we talked about what to say, what to not to say. We talked about that in the panel too. CBSA, I don't know if it's because they're funny or I don't know, but they are very literal. Most of my clients, they say, oh, I want to apply for a visa. What they want to do is to apply for a work permit because they are visa exempt. But, and I told them that if you go to the POE and apply for a visa, the CB officer will try to get you a visa, which you don't need, so it will be refused. So just make sure exactly what you want, why you can ask it at the port of entry. That's very important. You have to understand why, and be very clear of what you want. Of course, I give them a letter also, citing the 198.1 and 190 sub 3 sub F. Shafoli mentioned that, but do not, never do this if you apply for restoration or if you're on maintenance. Never go outside Canada if you don't have status or if you are an implied status. It's very risky. Know what kind of work permit you can apply for. You cannot apply for all the work permit at POE. Obviously, IEC, you cannot apply for at the POE. You cannot apply for Brunswick Open Work Permit, A70, like spousal open work permit. This you cannot do at the PAE. And always check, also I mentioned that today, but always check their history in the US, because usually they will tell them about their history in Canada, right? I got a work permit, I came here as a visitor or student or something, but they never tell you if they were refused once at the US or if they have immigration history there, because that could be a big trouble, because you send them to the US, something bad can happen to them. Okay, check immigration policy from the US too, not only Canada, but in the US. And also stay in touch with what happens with, RFCAN, biometrics, ETA. This thing change all the time. Like actually the RFCAN, I think, will be suppressed after September 30, so I'm checking because I have one of my clients who is at the POE right now, actually. Well, they're still at the POE. And I mentioned that, but know where you go. So it's good to visit the place before, so you can tell your client exactly, okay, you have to go this line and so on, and it's very difficult to get lost, but sometimes it can be tricky. So it's good if you know the POE yourself. We said that manage the expectation, so tell them that the wait can be 1 hour, but it could be very, very long depending on the many people there, the paperwork, the kind of application, and so on. Try to go, borders are open all the time, but sometimes they like to process application at certain dates. Like just today I learned that some POE don't process application on Fridays. So yeah, you need to know exactly when they're more inclined to work on your application. That's it. Okay. And something very nice also that you could use, there are some port of entries that are so small, like Pont Roberts or Cornwall, that you actually can get to the CBS officer without leaving the country. That's what I call fake flagpole. For instance, in Cornwall, you have there's a Cornwall Island, and after that there's the actual border. So the port of entry is on the island, so you can go there and not live in the country. So in that case, you can even go if you're on maintenance status because you're not living in the country. Don't forget the credit card, of course, for your client, because I have a lot of clients that were surprised that they have to pay something if they apply the port of entry. It's the same thing as online. You have to pay for your work permit, for your biometrics and stuff like that. If you need a medical, if you want to work with kids or so on, do your medicals before you go there. And what I like to do also is I always like to debrief my client afterwards. After they get it, after they come back from the POE, they call me. Usually, if they get the work permit, they will call you. They will call you to say thanks and so on. So you will be debriefed. But if they don't, just call them and make sure that everything was worked well or didn't work, and another time you can see what you can do. Yeah, fake flagpoling is what I said. Is there are some POEs, some of the POEs are not on the border or they are too small that you can actually go to see a CBS officer without leaving the country. So we can tell you, for instance, at Pont Roberts, it's the no man's land is so small. Usually the no man's lands are very big. Right? They have the border and the US border is over there. So there's a big no man's land. At Pont Roberts it's very small, so you can actually go there, knock on the door, say officer, if I leave the country, will you give me my work permit? If he says no, just don't leave the country. Right? Sorry? Yeah, just fake flagpoling is that when you flagpole without leaving the country, without crossing the border, basically. Sorry? No. You still have, because you still apply for work permit, so you still pay. Okay, and my last point, and a lot of people maybe don't agree with me, but you shouldn't charge less because you apply at the POE. And I was doing that. I was doing this because all my clients say, okay, but you didn't do anything. Basically, you just send me to the POE, which is not fair because I prepared them before and so on and so forth. I give them a letter, but it's true. We don't do the application. We do a bit of less job, but what I actually do is that I sign the return agreement with my client to actually, my role is to help them apply for a work permit. So if they go to a POE, get denied the work permit, I send them again. If they are denied again, then I do the application online, right? So at the end, the application will be sent. And if they get it at the POE, yes, I didn't do much, but they're happy. They got the work permit 5 months earlier that they could have got it if they apply online. So, and I mean, we could argue we could actually charge them more because it's faster and it's easier for them. But so that's why I yeah, but they're all visa exempt client because to apply at POE you have to be visa exempt client. But visa exempt client doesn't mean what I call natural visa exempt, like the 50 or so country, like France, Spain, and so on. Like the one on the yeah, the one on these maps, the green country there, they're what I call naturally visa exempt. All the red ones are not visa exempt. That means if they come from their country, they need a visa. But if they come to Canada and they have a status in Canada, it can be a visitor or student or worker, and if they leave Canada and come back before the end of their status, they are visa exempt at that time. So yes. Yeah, exactly. So if they refuse you, and they will because you don't have a visa to enter, so most of the time they will refuse you, and you come back to Canada, it counts as a visit. So, and for the US, it doesn't count as entering the US. So it's not a refusal per se. So you cannot say, if they ask you one day where you refused entry to the US, you can say no, because it's not entry to the US, just a flagpole. You go there, you say flagpole, and they just...
So you're saying that people who are not visa exempt, they can also do that?
Yes, because they are visa exempt. When they do that, they are visa exempt.
Okay.
Okay, that's...
No, he's saying you don't.
Yeah, you see, let's say here, a foreign national is exempt from visa, basically, if they are seeking re-entry to Canada, coming back to the US before the end of their status. So when they do that, they're actually visa exempt.
So if you are still in status, you can do that?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So if you have a work permit, if you have a work permit, you have to leave and come back before the end of your work permit.
Oh.
But usually you do that because when you flagpole, it's the same day. You go, you will be rejected at the border, so you come back. Oh. It's already the same day. Right?
They have to have a US visa if they're visa
No, they don't have to have a US visa.
They just need a status.
That's actually the discussion we had. That's why I thought at the beginning. That's why I only did people who could enter and come back. But then when they told me that being rejected from the US is the same as a visit, that blew my mind, because then say, okay, then you can send everyone. And we had this discussion in the group with some Indian colleagues that they said to me, oh, I do that all the time. So what? Wait, no, you can't because you're Indian. And actually they can. Yeah, that's very nice. So that's all for me. Is there any more questions? Good.
So any questions for Sebastian? I know this table here had lots of questions, but we're looking for others. Any other questions? All right, so thank you so much, Sebastian. That was very, very insightful. And we really, really appreciate having the expert opinions, the expert discussions here. And one thing I have to say is this is really the purpose of this group. This is really the purpose of this event. So we know who's who, we know who we have, who we're surrounded with, and who we can seek advice from when needed. So honestly, port of entry is something I have no idea about. Sorry, go ahead.
My client just got a work permit at the port of entry. Actually, 2 work permits, C16, C20, C41, yeah.
Just now, eh? Wonderful. So we're having it live. Actually, his client just got the work permit at the point of entry. So how timely is that? You know, one thing again I wanted to say, I recently had a client call me at the office and asking me about caregiver application. I personally don't do any caregiver application, so I explained to her the process because I do know the process, but have I done it myself? I haven't. And so she even asked me, did your office do a caregiver application previously? And I said, well, no, but I have a but to add. We have a huge network of immigration consultants and immigration lawyers who are willing to support each other, who are willing to support one another, and that's why Sebastian volunteered his time, came forward here to share with us his tips and tricks about work permit applications. A big round of applause for Sebastian. Thank you. And really, thank you to this group. From the day I started this business, and now, you know, if I get a chance, we'll talk later, but I have actually resigned from my full-time job because of this group. Thank you to all your support. Thank you to everyone who really volunteered their time for us to know each other and to see each other here today. So one more round of applause, please, for Sebastian. And congratulations for your client who just got their work permit. All right, so we'll have a bit of a break. And then maybe once shortly, we'll resume some activities together. All right, thank you. Unfortunately, we're not requesting any reconsiderations today. Okay, one more time. Can I have your attention? Okay, how about we all come to the center for a group photo? Can we have everyone come to the center, please? Center. Can I have Jeff and your group, please, come to the center? Please. Can we have you for a group to the center, please? Can we have center for a group photo? Thank you. Can we have everyone in the center for a group photo? Thank you. Everyone in the center. Yes, everyone.
Okay, we're gonna take one serious picture and one smiling picture. Okay, we're gonna take the serious picture now. Everybody smiling. Ha, 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 ha. Thank you, guys.
have some words from him.
Thank you, Isha. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. You guys are awesome. Hello, everyone. You guys are awesome. So I have one last announcement today before we close our formal event and get on to dance and music. That is an important one. I want to recognize two key people. Actually, we were looking for one, but very difficult decision it was. So we want to recognize two key people who have been supporting us as RCICs throughout the year. And you know, I keep track, I am a statistics guy. I keep track of who does what. And I found the maximum support for us came from two lead contributors in the group. And I want to recognize them. I want to thank them. And I also think that will motivate more to help us all. So I want to request Sebastian and Asma, please come on stage. Sebastian and Asma. So we have a gift for both of you together. We planned one, thinking we will have one person, but tough decision. So we thought we will jointly give, we will make one extra and share with the other person. For now, we have one. And thank you, Asma. Thank you, Sebastian. I don't want to discount all the awesome leads who support us. Almost all of them we know, we have been connecting with. So thank you all. Thank you all. Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. You can have a few words, please.
Yeah, I really want to say that this should really be for the group. It's a representation of who we are together, really. It's not one person, it's not two. It's all of us coming together to share and grow and learn and come here to participate and grow together professionally in this field. I know this field has been, and I have to say this field has been blacklisted for years and years and years, and I know because of the ethics, the work ethics that has been brought up multiple times through this session, that together we will change that blacklist and we'll make it green and nice and gold. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so what can I do, what can I say after that? So I'm honored, and I'm actually more honored to sharing this with Asma, because she's great. And I cannot believe that I actually got this one, because I got sideways from the group at some point. But yeah, okay, I'm still here. And I hope someone else get it next year, because that would mean that someone else contributed a lot, and we need that. We need people contribute a lot to the group. And this group is fantastic. We are trying now to do the same thing with Francophone community, and it's really great. When I started, it was easy for me to view other RCICs as, competition, because, they steal your clients and so on. But it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, it's very great that we can share everything, and all the connection we do tonight or during the year in the group and so on are actually what brings clients to us. I mean, I got many clients from people here in this group, so there's no competition there. It's just, I don't know, friendship and network and so on. It's very great. So hopefully I see you all next year, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Thank you so much, Asma. As the last step, I want to call all the core team members who made this event possible today. please come on stage, all the core team members. Yes. You can have 1 second, Asha. We'll take one photo together. Then he will. Yep. Yes. Thank you. Where is our core team? Rajit? Samina? Govinda, where are you guys? Come on stage, please, please. You're all behind the scene. Jayan. Many of these people have been working silently behind the scenes without making any complaints, and I've been pushing them. So I should say thank you all. Thank you, each and every one of you. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Come, Jayant. Where is Govinda? Govinda! Okay, he's standing there. Okay. Yes. Yes, yeah, come on. Yep. You can hold it in hand. Okay, thank you everyone. Okay team, now we will stop the live streaming and it's time to have some fun. Please join in the fun and I will try to do some dance too.
Live streaming during the fun not allowed?
No, not, basically we have copyright issues with the songs can be. We will all dance, yeah.